Alright guys, sup, Ryu here for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Council with a tale of the future. The new Forbidden Limited List, Konami explains it. Oh Konami, oh Konami. Now before this video gets started, this is not coffee time. Your coffee time is scheduled to come out at 8 p.m. tonight. Don't worry. Secondly, I just want to quickly say I'm reshooting this because the first time the audio was pretty ass because the dog was barking at people and there was drilling outside. Go figure why there's drilling at like 7 in the morning. New York, New York. So if you haven't seen the list yet, here's the list in front of you, and then we're going to just jump straight into it. So they started talking about in sections: Monarchs, Pendulum, Burning Abyss, Cosmo, and then, you know, the generic stuff. So we'll start from there. Monarch, considered by many to be the big loser of this new Forbidden Limited list. I just want to break this down real quick. I did not expect Konami to use words like big loser and big winner and toxic throughout this post, but hey, that's the kind of company they are. So Monarch decks are affected by the limitations of either the Heavenly Monarch, I probably just butchered that to hell, Pantheism of the Monarchs, and the Monarch Storm 4th. All of which have typically been included 3 times, only 3 times, in recent Monarch deck lists. Well, to be fair, I think this is worded terribly, and what they're trying to say is that it's constantly and consistently played across the board in high amounts of numbers. The Heavenly Monarch, the Pantheism, and the Monarch Storm 4th, whether you're playing Dominion Monarchs or Extra Deck Monarchs, you're definitely going to play those 3 at 3 because of the advantage that they brought to the table. So, they go on to say, all of which have typically been included with the deck list, which, with this change, Monarch decks lose valuable consistency and will have to risk unplayable hands much more often. Technically, they won't, and there's still plenty of options for the deck to go moving forward. They left Dominion at 3. That's number 1. So Dominion basically allows you to play Dominion Monarchs. That's the thing. The only changing gears that's going to happen is that you lose out on the 2 Storm 4th and the Pantheism and of course the Heavenly Monarch. One that can be replaced by Lord of Darkness. One, if you want to, I'm not suggesting you do, can be replaced with Soul Exchange, but keep in mind Monarch Storm 4th is searchable and recyclable because of the Prime Monarch. And on top of this, the only real thing you're going to be losing is a Heavenly Monarch and the Karaz Combo Wombo, which is okay, because it's really not that much of a loss when you could play the Trap card on your opponent's turn, combine that with the 1 Monarch Storm 4th and go from there. But hey, what am I saying? Extra Deck Monarchs are still a thing. The Pantheism can be replaced by Lord of Darkness. Not saying it will, because I'm not some, guy who has a crystal ball that sees into the future. So let's go on to Pendulum. Pendulum decks, which often use both the Performer Pal and Magispector engine. To be fair, I didn't see too many of the Magispector engine being Raccoon and Kryn only, but that's a Magispector engine. Okay. And have to play entirely without Monkey Board from now on. I don't think that's too much of an issue, as Gaming Showdown in yesterday's video showed that the Odd Eyes build is still pretty damn consistent and powerful as ever. There's also the, and Konami actually mentions it, the Metalfoe version, so there's that too. But a single copy of the very powerful Magispector Kryn, it's limited now. And the limitation of Pendulum Call also weakens one of the different ways the deck generates a card advantage. This reduces their consistency and makes it much less likely to overpower any field. The general game plan, however, still works fine, and they might just be around for the next format, even if they won't be as strong as they were. Basically, they're more they're more weakened to a Twin Twister. They're going to get hurt by it more because Pendulum Call gave them protection, and without that protection, they're hurt a lot worse than they would have been without it. So the Metalfoes from Dark Illusion also fit nicely into the Pendulum framework and will bring a new form in this long-lasting deck to life. Konami, we get it. People were going to play Metalfoes anyway, but they're going to play Metalfoe Yang Zing. I don't really see a Metalfoe Magician Magispector deck topping, but hey, you never know. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! And maybe it'll happen. Next, Burning Abyss. With Sir Malebranche of the Burning Abyss also going from semi to limited, Burning Abyss loses one of its more notable effects. They put effect. that would be used frequently to special summon more monsters. The far greater impact, though, will be the limitation of Beatrice the Eternal Lady, which is an important high-end monster in the deck and makes it much more sturdy when facing destruction effects. With only one copy allowed, this strategy is a strategy that can no longer be used over and over again. Bullshit! It can still be used over and over again. Dante will allow it to be used over and over again. Nice try, Konami. Nice try. Beatrice is fine at 1. The real hit, like I said, would have been Dante. They still have the Phantom Knight engine of things, so they're still going to be able to pick up their pieces and go from there. So, again, but they go on to say that Burning Abyss is seen by many as the winner of the new Forbidden and Limited list, which I just slam my head on the table every time I have to read Konami using the words winner, loser, or toxic. Toxic is coming up in the post. Oh, Konami, please. Hire someone new who can actually write an article 10 times better with wording. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying me. There's much more qualified people, needless to say. But Cosmo. This deck loses 2 copies of its primary boss monster and has to reduce its emergency teleport count to 1 copy. Several copies of Cosmo Dark Destroyer were often crucial for huge Cosmo turns, but since the deck is able to reuse many of its resources, notice how they know the deck is able to reuse most of its resources and access most of its deck through Cosmo Tin Can. They say Cosmo Tin Can when technically it's Cosmo Town. I'm going to explain why in a moment. This change will not make the deck completely unplayable and instead only reduces its consistency, which seems to be the common theme for this Forbidden and Limited list. Way to go, Konami! Way to go. I don't know when the last time Konami just picked up Cosmos, looked at them, and goes, hey, guess what? They're a dark deck, and they work on banishing. And if we put Cosmo Town, and we leave it at 3, and remember, Cosmo Town searchable by what kids? Terraforming. And then if we play Gold Sarcophagus at 3, we could banish out any of our Cosmos, and then use Cosmo Town to search that card. Oh my god, we're Konami, and we didn't think about that, because that's something we're supposed to do in R&D, but we obviously didn't. Yes, I am extremely hating on them, because it's fucking true. To say that most of the deck was through Tin Can, then why didn't the Tin Can limitation come? Because the big focus was Dark Destroyer, it needed the hit. Emergency Teleport was just basically one of those side-by shooting kind of hits. But in all seriousness, Gold Sarcophagus is just going to replace it. It's just going to be like, okay, pay 1,000, get it to your hand, and then blow up your Cosmo on board and drop it to the board. Problem solved. And then Dark Planet will pretty much replace Dark Destroyer. And then again, if you dead draw it, 3 Allure of Darkness. And then there's still the Card of Demise that the deck liked to run. And there's still the pot of new freaking cocaine that Konami wants to sell you that the deck could probably use too. Just saying. Thanks, Konami. Thanks. But let's talk about the anti-meta and techs, as Konami calls it. Maxi apparently is a tech card, not a staple, guys. Even though we all know Maxi was pretty much a staple, you wanted it in your side or your main deck, some shape or form, a good chunk of the time, if you were playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! But no, it's a tech card. Maxi has been seen as one of the most popular tech choices in recent tournaments. I wouldn't call it tech. I would just said it's one of the most popular cards in recent tournaments, but hey. And many duelists have been running them in their main deck for a while. With the abundance of special summons in the current metagame, Maxi was able to force your opponent into a very awkward decision, and semi-limiting it will reduce the consistency of decks that can easily use it. Oh, Konami. Oh, Konami. Oh, Konami. Oh, Konami. 2 is still consistent as anything. 1 would have really drove the nail home, but Maxi doesn't really need the limitation to be completely fair. It's not a card that is not fair or unbalanced. The main reason they did hit it is because when Burning Abyss had the Beatrice on the board with everything else, and they would chain Maxi, so you would try to make a big play over it, especially as a Blue Eyes player. That was extremely hard with all their back row and whatnot, and they were regathering resources on top of the Phantom Knight engine, that when those Phantom Knights hit the graveyard, they could banish themselves out to get more searches. That's mainly why. See, Ryu does his homework. On the other hand, easy access to Kaiser Coliseum could completely shut down an opponent's strong opening. I like to stop right here and just say, guys, when was the last time you saw Kaiser Coliseum? I know there's that new thing coming up, but let's talk about this first. When was the last time you saw it in this previous format? Nada. Nada, 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 nada. Maybe in an Evil Swarm deck, but I have not seen an Evil Swarm deck top. Now, have I? To be fair, I haven't. And the other part is, if the lock was really an issue, usually it's Konami standard to let it just go for like a month and then e-ban it if, emergency ban it if need be. So you could say it's a pre-em hit, but it's just dumb as hell either which way. And I did hear that Kaiser Coliseum was using a tournament and there was mixed rulings with Monarch Storm 4th and being able to tribute your opponent's monster because would it break the limit when you go for the heavily Monarch's effect and get the Karez, some shit like that. It was a headache and a half. But of course, Konami's just like, screw that, we're going to do it this way. Could completely shut down an opponent's strong opening and make a comeback much harder and stealing games before they even start. Yeah, back in the Boojin format when we were all screaming for it to get limited, but no, Konami, you didn't do nothing back then. Of course not. Of course. This kind of situation has always been undesirable, and this change follows in the footsteps of cards like Royal Oppression, allowing players to turn around games more often. So when's that Solemn Strike limitation coming, Konami? Because that's a card that makes it hard to make a comeback for certain people who want to play a deck like Blue Eyes or something, and you don't have everything you need, and your opponent just curb stomps you with back row. But no, Konami, no. Thunder King Row has fallen out of flavor recently. It's been like 16 freaking formats, and they're saying recently. Probably not that long, but still. And it is no longer a powerful lock card it once was. You made a card that was a trap card called Mistake that had the same effect as Thunder King Ryo outside the stopping your special summons, and the fact that it didn't have a 1900 body, which back when Thunder King was limited was a lot harder to get over because you had to use shit like Smashing Ground. We didn't have Raigeki, and I didn't even think we had Dark Hole. So, okay, fair enough. But at the same time, don't say recently, just say in general. But hey, I'm just nitpicking. So we could be seeing the first of a two-step removal for Thunder King. Basically, if it doesn't do what most people are figuring it's going to do over the next couple of months, then it's going to 3. They mentioned Wind Up Magician is part of a long-forgotten deck that has no relevancy in the current metagame. Infernities! 6 Samurai! I can name everything on that list that has no relevancy to the meta or will not have relevancy to the meta. But hey, at least we got Wind Up Magician off of there, right? Shit. And then we get to Gold Sarcophagus, which was a key card in many combo decks several formats ago, but the very high consistency of recent deck archetypes making it generic search cards far less valuable. Cosmo, slap some Cosmos in there, more Cosmos. Is unlikely to see any more play than it did in recent years. Oh, Konami, you just shot yourself in the foot. You're going to see it played so much in Cosmos. And if not, I'd be surprised. Finally, both Thousand Eyes Restrict and Allure of Darkness are now completing their second part of the typical two-step removal from the Forbidden and Limited list after loosening their limitations in the last update. It went well. Yeah, Thousand Eyes Restrict didn't do shit, like many of us have been saying for years. Allure of Darkness at 2 really didn't do too much just yet, but at 3, I think we're going to see something pop up that is going to make use of it. If not now, then in the future. And I did say this before, I don't believe it should ever came to 3 because of how generic it is. But at the same time, I'm doing backflips playing Black Wings and Chaos Dragons with it. So I really don't care either which way. It's win-win. It's a win-win. But, yeah, it didn't bring back any toxic FTKs. Could have just used the word degenerate, which is more, I guess, it's a more proper, professional grade, level way of saying things that are bad. We use the word toxic because we describe how people act. It's like a poison. Konami describing that an FTK deck is like poison is a little bit out of professional level. Maybe that's just me holding them to a higher standard and wanting to see a better game overall. But what do I know? The overarching theme of this Forbidden Limited List update is a reduction of the consistency to the most dominant decks in the current format. None of them become entirely unplayable, but some of them lose more consistency than others. Additionally, several cards are removed from the list in a typical 2 steps, bringing back consistency and power to old decks that have been out of the format for too long. I really do still think Konami should have tested Gold Sarcophagus at 2 before putting it to 3, because when you limit Dark Destroyer and they do have that combo that they could search out anything, I think it's a major misstep. But I really do believe 100% that was purposely done to get people to play Cosmos, because Cosmos were playing out of, like, they're falling out of flavor because obviously there were better decks to be playing, and if you were more on the pro end, you played either Monarchs or you play Phantom Knights with Burning Abyss, because the way the deck functions and you knew how, like, the grind game was and all that, it's ridiculous. But guys, share your thoughts on what you think, how Konami phrased things. Do you think it was okay that they used the word toxic FTK decks, or just the winner and loser of the ban list? I just think it's phrased terribly with some of their stuff and their reasoning behind it. They should have just been quiet and been like, this is our business plan, deal with it, enough said. But that's just me. I'm just happy we have the list in all seriousness, and I'll see you guys tonight for coffee time for the Mega 10 video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you